And we, like I said previously, we will provide this training via our weekly announcements. We will upload it to our Connors YouTube channel, and we'll probably send it out via email to the college. So today we are going to talk about digital accessibility. Before we jump in, I just want to acknowledge the elephant in the room, which is that a lot of people are very nervous about some of the new communication that we have sent out. People have a lot of questions around what digital accessibility is, what's included. In the presentation today, I'm going to give a high-level overview of what's included in that. We'll talk about some of the resources that we have available and what you can expect over the coming months/years regarding digital accessibility. So I am just going to jump right in. I'm going to share my screen with y'all and we will go through it. Okay. Can y'all see my screen here? I'll put it in presentation mode here. Okay. So first, let's talk about, many of you might already be familiar with what digital accessibility is, but I really like this definition I found. Digital accessibility refers to the practice of designing and developing digital content, applications, and services in a way that ensures they can be used by everyone, including people with disabilities. It means creating an inclusive digital environment where all employees, students, and visitors can access and interact with digital resources without barriers. So a couple things to start. We do have some current WSU policies as well as Washington state and federal laws that I want to highlight. The first thing is User 01 accessibility policy. This policy basically is Washington state policy that says we must ensure that we have equal access for all of our users. It does have a technical standard that we must meet, which is WCAG 2.1, which WCAG stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. There's a lot to those guidelines. We don't expect everyone to know what those are right off the bat, but just to be aware that under Washington state law, that is the technical standard that we are required to follow. And I'm putting the links for those references down in the bottom of this PowerPoint. I'm happy to share this via email as well for anyone who would like. Alex, would you mind writing down a list of names for the attendees today so I can get it? Thank you so much. Okay. This is the newest rule that was recently published under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act requires that state and local governments give people with disabilities an equal opportunity to benefit from all programs, services, and activities. And the biggest thing to note here is that on April 24th of this year, a new rule was published under the Title II of the Americans Disability Act. And that final rule has specific requirements for how we ensure web content and digital content is accessible to all users. The technical standard that is listed under this rule is also the WCAG 2.1 AA standard. Additionally, we have two existing WSU policies that are basically in support of and in alignment with these laws that are already in place. One of them is EPO 7, which is Electronic and Information Technology Accessibility Policy, and then BPPM 8555, ensuring electronic and information technology accessibility. I'm not going to go over those specifically. I'll provide the links to everyone so that you can access those resources and read them on your own. But essentially what they say is that we need to ensure that all of the content that we provide digitally is accessible to all users, is really to summarize it. And so what's included in that? So some people just think that digital accessibility refers to websites. That is a common misconception. It actually applies to all of the digital content that we create and share in a digital environment. So included would be websites, any documents that we share either via email, via the web, online via Canva or any of our training platforms, all of the videos and webinars that we develop and create, podcasts or audio, course materials, information kiosks, applications. This also applies to password protected sites that might be just specifically intended for a small audience, and then also email. So what does this mean for us as a university and a college? So the new published rule under the ADA Title II has really kind of made this issue come to the forefront, I guess, if you will. But we have already been required by Washington state law to follow WCAG 2.1 AA standards. This new rule that's under the Americans with Disability Act is just an extra layer of liability for us. Which when we're talking about liability, it means if we don't fall into compliance, and there is a deadline associated with this through the federal guidelines, which is April of 2026, right? Or yeah, April of 2026. And if we're not in compliance, then it's liability for the university. Technically, we could be sued, or complaints could be submitted towards the university. And there has been an uptick in lawsuits since the publishing of the new rule in April, just to keep that in mind. So what does this mean for you as an individual? So a lot of time, a lot of questions have been coming in. A lot of people want to know, what does this mean for me? And so at the very basic level, all WSU employees, all Connors and Extension employees should really familiarize themselves with what those policies are, because we all create digital content. We all publish digital content, even if we're not publishing it on the web. We need to make sure we're developing all that content to be accessible to all users. Obviously, this is going to take a huge commitment from across the university, across the college. We need to commit to accessibility policies, regular training, and the use of accessible design and development in all of our digital platforms. So what you can do to ensure you're making or publishing accessible content, familiarize yourself with WSU policies and the law. Be clear on what it is and how it applies to the work that you do. So for example, if you're somebody who's creating and sharing documents regularly, you're going to want to make sure that you are using the built-in accessibility tools and that you learn how to create those documents to be accessible. Take training. We can train departments, individuals. We're doing trainings, obviously, like today during Open Lab. We're continuing to develop resources for the Connors and Extension community. One new addition is we have just posted or published a frequently asked questions page on our marketing and communications website. That is all frequently asked questions related to digital accessibility, and they're actual questions that I've received in the past couple of months. So if you don't find the answer to the question that you're looking for, you can submit your question on that same webpage, and we'll get back to you with any answers that we have within a good certain amount of time, within a reasonable amount of time, I should say. So what you can do right now is start making your content accessible. This might even be just taking a basic training on Microsoft Word. A lot of the barriers that we see are with documents posted on websites. That is a very common barrier that we're running into. So where you can start is with the content that you create. If you're not sure how to do that, we have a lot of resources on our website, links to different video and written instructions for how to create accessible documents or accessible content. So please take a look at those. Also, if you want to schedule a department level training, we will be doing that over the next several months to a year, really trying to familiarize everyone with what it means to submit or to create accessible content. So that brings me to what you can expect to see in the next coming months or years. We have recently established a Connors Digital Accessibility Compliance Committee, and that committee is working on a training and support plan, on developing some downloadable resources like accessible PowerPoints that are pre-branded, accessible documents that are pre-branded. Additionally, we're working on a communication plan where we'll be communicating regularly with digital accessibility updates for the Connors and Extension community. And then you can expect to see a lot more department level discussions, either specific trainings and discussions on digital accessibility or on specific topics like how to create accessible videos or how to create accessible documents. So over the next year and a half, in preparation for that April 2026 deadline, you can expect to see a lot of opportunities where you can learn more about digital accessibility and how you can help move this forward. So what is happening here? Can't advance my slide. There we go. Okay, so resources. There's a lot of resources that I can provide for you, but probably a great place to start is the main WSU Digital Accessibility website. The URL is right there, and we will also share this PowerPoint out to the group. But that digital accessibility website is a work in progress. It's very comprehensive already, but over the next year, you can expect to see a number of additional resources, trainings, information that will be continued to be added to that site. Additionally, the Connors Marketing and Communications website, we have a section dedicated to digital accessibility. You can visit our website. That's where our frequently asked questions page is, with a number of questions broken out by topic, and also links to additional resources and trainings that you can take a look at. So I'm not getting into all of the basics, what the most common errors, things like that are. I wanted to keep this high level for the group and give an opportunity for you all to ask some questions. And hopefully we can, kind of answer any questions you might have. And then if we have capacity, we can also dive into some more of the basic techniques for what to look out for digital accessibility, some of those core concepts. So Alex has put some links in the chat, those resources that I talked about. What questions do you have on what I've covered so far? No questions? Okay, well, no questions from the group then. I am just going to talk about, go ahead, Jennifer.
Hi, Sarah. I'm just brand new to this whole idea. So I guess one question I have is if we're just sending documents between colleagues and our partners, out of state partners, whatever that might be, are those things that we need to be concerned about, or is it documents that would reach a wide audience?
It's anything that we send electronically, because our audience, it includes all faculty, staff, employees, students. It really includes everybody. That is what the law applies to. So if we are just developing documents internally, they should really be made accessible. It's really quite simple to do that. Microsoft has built-in accessibility tools, and the basic concepts are, proper heading structures, descriptive alternative text. There's some basic, core concepts that you can look at that really don't require a lot of time to set your document up to be accessible. And the more you get in the habit, the more likely it is that this won't be a problem 5 years from now for us. So just regardless of who you're sending it to, I would get in the habit of making that content accessible. We don't know if some of our users might have a visual impairment or some other form of a disability. So it's important that we're always designing for that possibility in mind. Does that answer your question, Jennifer?
Yeah, just a follow-up. Are these settings we can set our Word documents to always, or is this something we're gonna always have to remember to do each time, or is there a way to, this is probably all in this is a little too in the weeds, but is there a way to set these as oh, sorry, the word is not coming to me, as a standard
Like a
for
reusable template or something? Is that?
exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you can definitely do that. There are ways to set up a reusable template for yourself. That includes, so what you could include in the template is like the pre-styled heading structure and links and tables and the formatting piece. But as far as building your content out, you will still need to make sure that your heading structures are in the right order, that you have alternative text added to all images. So you'll still have to remember to check all of those elements. You can actually leave the accessibility checker on while you're building your document, and it'll flag any issues that might come up. It'll let you know if you're missing alternative text or if you're, not using some of the right formatting. It doesn't catch everything, but it does catch all of the low-hanging fruit, if you will. So just maybe get in the habit of leaving the accessibility checker on while you're building your documents. And then when you do have something, you can save it as a template and then reuse that and just change the content within the document. And that will save you some time. And again, on our website, we have a number of accessible document resources available with short videos and tutorials that'll help you quickly learn how to set up your documents to be accessible.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
May I ask one more question?
Of course.
So one thing that was pointed out to me is that we aren't supposed to have like hyperlinks. We're supposed to have, change our hyperlinks into words. But one of the things that I think is confusing to me and worries me is that that's an easy way to have a hyperlink to a spam. Right? If we're just clicking on, like I was even noticing on the email that we received, join the Zoom meeting. I'm just trusting that that's a Zoom meeting and not somebody's created a spam link that I'm just clicking on. And so I'm curious how this new policy fits with our security rules, which is don't click on links if you don't know specifically what they're about. And I know you can hover over them, but do people hover over them? I don't know. So
yeah, I mean, that really comes down to, security training that they have us do. And do you trust the email or not? There are usually some signs that it's not a reputable email when it comes through. But outside of that, if somebody who is not sighted is using a screen reader and they are reading their email with a screen reader and they come to that link, if it's a really long URL, that screen reader is going to read out every letter of that URL. It will say https:// and read out every letter of that URL. It's not a good user experience for somebody who's using assistive technology. So it is suggested that you hyperlink your text and make it a descriptive link. So I think it just comes down to being able to identify what's suspicious and not suspicious as far as emails, come into play. I don't have a better answer for you, unfortunately.
no,
Yeah.
that's great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Let's see. What other questions do we have? Charts and graphs need to be described in alt text. Yeah, that's a really good question, Molly. And that comes up a lot. And it's hard, right? It's hard to provide descriptive alternative text to some of our complex charts and graphs. We're still required to do it. I can tell you that. So if we are providing just a screenshot or a graph as an image, if there isn't enough room within the caption to accurately describe to a non-sighted user what is going on in that graph, then we need to link to an additional page that further explains the content. I know that seems like a lot, and a lot of people's eyes get really big when we tell them that, but that is the requirement. So there are some different technologies I know that are available where you can embed those graphs in a interactive, usable way. I know the university has a enterprise account for Tableau, but again, that is it's another software that you'd have to learn how to use, or someone in your department would have to learn how to use. But it is an alternative to just pasting screenshots or images of charts and graphs on your website. You just have to realize that not everyone is going to be able to understand what's in that image without a description, an accurate description of what's going on with that content. So, um, what other questions? Well, I'm just going to pull up um, the new frequently asked questions page and the WSU digital accessibility page just to go over some of these resources that we've talked about. Please feel free to jump in and ask questions if you still have them. So this is the site I referenced that is the main WSU digital accessibility website. There's a lot of really good information on here, um, from getting started, talking about, the fundamentals of digital accessibility. Um, this digital accessibility assessment is soon to be a requirement for all WSU employees. So this is going to be an annual required Percipio training. So if you have not taken this oops, zooming in here. If you've not taken this training, I highly encourage you to do so. What it covers is all of these core concepts that are on this website. So these are the biggest things that we see, and the core concepts, as they would say, related to digital accessibility. So headings, is your heading structure in the proper order? Do you have one heading, one per page or per website? Are you keeping your heading structures in a hierarchical structure, heading 1, 2, 3, without skipping? Links, are you using descriptive link text? Do you have empty links on your site or on your page? Are lists properly used with a bulleted list rather than like a manually adding a dot or a dash to the page? Images, are they decorative? If they're decorative, then they need to be, they need to have empty alt text, or not empty, but quotation, if you will. Alt text, if it's, conveying information to the user, it needs to have a description that accurately would describe the image to the user if they could not see it. Color and color contrast. This is kind of baked into the new web accessibility or web design system. But if you're creating documents, for example, and you have a really low color contrast, say a light gray background with a just slightly darker gray text, it's not very readable to somebody who might have a color blindness, for example. Another thing that we see often is tables. People using tables for layout as opposed to just displaying data. And when using tables, having missing heading columns, header columns, which causes an accessibility issue for somebody. And then audio and video is another really big question that we've been getting lately that we could have an entire training on, as far as what's required for captions, what's required for transcripts, and so on. So there's a lot of good information here. If you create any of that content, I highly suggest you take a look at this site. And then also, I'll just jump over to our Connors Marketing and Communications site. We have a digital accessibility section here. On this page, you basically just have a lot of links to what I just showed you, which is the main digital accessibility website for the college. But we also have a number of resources listed on here for creating accessible documents for both Adobe and then also Microsoft. And we'll be adding to this list, but everything from checking your document accessibility in Word, to answering questions like what is an accessible PDF and how to create one. So definitely a lot of resources that you can utilize here, depending on what kind of content you're creating. Make your PowerPoint presentation accessible to people with disabilities. And then we've just added this new section, this new page, digital accessibility FAQs. This page has WSU's accessibility statement on it. You can, and a link to the full university accessibility statement. It also has links to all of the related policies and laws and guidelines that I went over in the PowerPoint. An area to submit a question if you don't see the answer to your question on this page. And then you can dive into different topic areas. Again, this is a work in progress. I've already added 3 new questions since it's been posted, just because those are the questions I've received via email. So from what is accessibility to the policies and guidelines, these are all related to documents, social media, video, and then questions regarding training and support. So there's a lot of information on this page. And again, these are all questions that I've received in the last couple months from the Connors and Extension community. So keep that in mind. Also, there is a number of digital accessibility and announcements and events. So if you're interested in additional trainings, this page has upcoming webinars or trainings that are external to WSU that are usually free. So there's a number of training opportunities available that get published here when they're available. So the WSU web team also sends out a monthly newsletter. I think this is the link to it. So this here, if you're interested in receiving a monthly digital accessibility newsletter from the university, it highlights what's new with digital accessibility, any upcoming trainings, recent announcements. It's also a nice thing to sign up for. So you can do that on their website. And that information is also listed on the bottom of their homepage for the latest announcements, trainings, guides, things like that. So a lot of different resources available. I'm sure it's information overload for you all. Common thing that I'm getting is how overwhelmed people are. So my suggestion is start small. Really just familiarize yourself with how you can make the content that you create on a daily basis accessible. That's the best place to start. We will be working to try and remediate a lot of the content that's already out there that's not accessible, but that is obviously going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort. Part of the task of the Digital Accessibility Committee is to hopefully identify university resources, opportunities for resources, and get a better understanding of how we'll be supported by the university in these efforts. So we'll be reporting back on that as we continue to learn more on what the university is doing to ensure compliance. So stay tuned for that. Let's see. So Jennifer, I have a very old WSU website that can no longer be updated. WSU has provided no funding for me to update my website into the WordPress platforms. Would these changes be possible? Do I need to pull down my old website? Okay, what website are you referring to, Jennifer?
I have it's for my program specifically, invasives.wsu.edu. And it's on, gosh, what was the name of that? I haven't been able to change it in years. It requires a special key. I don't even know if this is a platform that's used anymore. And yeah, so when I've looked into changing to WordPress, there's just, I'm fairly independent. I'm grant funded. And so I don't have necessarily resources to create WSU WordPress. Like every time the platform changes, I can't change my content. Right. And so like, it's still a valuable website. People contact me all the time right. after looking at things, but it is out of date. And I wish I could do something about this. But it's also like definitely not compliant. So
yeah, no, it's definitely needs to be updated. And to be honest, I don't know. My understanding is that if it's not compliant and it can't be made to be compliant, then yes, it will need to be taken down by the deadline. Don't quote me on that. That is my understanding until I know otherwise, because it's a liability for the university if it's not compliant. So I can tell you just by looking at this site that the color contrast ratio and a number of other items would need to be updated. I mean, it looks like I mean, how many pages is it? It just looks like it's just a handful of pages. I can't imagine this would be too terribly difficult to copy paste over into the web design system. I mean, maybe a few hours of time for you to be able to do that, and we could help provide training for you to be able to do that. We don't charge for hosting. We don't charge for training. We could teach you how to the content that you wanted to move over. We could set up a stage site for you in the web design system, and you could basically just recreate each page. And then we could put in a request to publish it. But just looking at it from the home page, it doesn't seem to me like, unless you have a lot of pages hidden underneath, that it's a very big site. And so I
Okay.
don't know if you have like a grad student or anyone that could help, or if you could just commit to a few hours of time um, but this is definitely an example of something that would need to be updated, or it would likely need to come down.
Okay, I had looked into having a outside person working on my website, and the things we had come up with that we wanted to do, WSU was far too restrictive on, and so we had talked about putting the website on an outside source,
Mm.
so not on a WSU system, which I'm pretty in favor of doing. It would be hosted somewhere else, though it would be still WSU related. In terms of having WSU content on somebody else's system, all of these compliance rules still exist, right?
Yes, third-party vendors are included in the law. So if we are still associating ourselves with WSU and we are using a different platform, that platform has to be compliant. The law does cover that. Um, I don't know all of the details yet on that. That's one question that I've recently asked is because we use a lot of third-party systems at WSU, like, Workday and, um, you know, Extension has asked questions about like Eventbrite or, different systems that they use for event registration and how does the law apply to that? I don't know yet. That's a question I'm bringing to the university committee um, that has recently been formed, the new WSU Digital Accessibility Committee. I'm serving as a member on that, but I haven't met with the committee yet. I'm hoping that will come soon, and that is on my list of questions for the group is how do we approach third-party um, software, systems, vendors, things like that, because the law does require it. Based on my understanding of the way the law is written, we are responsible for ensuring that the content is compliant unless we have a contract in place where they state that they will ensure that their software or service remains in compliance with our standards. So liability comes to us unless there's a contract in place that says the liability doesn't. So I'm sure more information is going to be coming out about that sooner, but that's about what I have to offer at this moment. So if you're going to use something like Wix or some other type of format, you still have to follow the same rules, especially if there is a WSU logo on the site.
Okay, thanks so much.
Yep. Let's see. Jennifer, we have a stage site, multiple crowd working through. The new software is much easier to use if you opt. That's good feedback, Michelle. Thank you. It is much easier to use, Jennifer. I know it's intimidating to think of, oh my gosh, transitioning to a whole new platform, but really it can be a matter of just copy pasting over some content in a matter of a few hours, especially if you have a small site, and then putting up the new system, which the benefit of that too is the web design system that we're migrating everyone to is compliant with digital accessibility standards. You're responsible for the content you create on an actual web page and making sure it follows the right structure and layout and all of the rules related to links. But as far as the body and the structure of the site, it's all compliant. Before anything gets launched or goes live, it's thoroughly reviewed and checked for accessibility standards. So there's peace of mind in that for moving to the web design system.
And I'm going to add on to that. I also feel like there's more functionality with it, with design and what you wanted to do, which sounded like something you wanted as well. So, and it's all accessible. We're working on the Snap Ed site. It's starting to look really good. So just some ideas too with that.
What other questions?
Can I ask a little bit of a nittier gritty question, but
Of course.
something that I know a few people that I work with struggle with? So a lot of times, like, I can follow all the instructions and the accessibility, like all the documents you have, but we really struggle when we get to the final stage of like adjusting the reading order in Adobe in Acrobat, and then it hides a bunch of stuff. Once I move the reading order to the right way, then it hides all of my elements, and then I'm just left with some things being covered and some things uncovered. I struggle with PDFs that I make in InDesign in the same way, and then if I try to go from PowerPoint to a PDF, working with them in Acrobat. And I'm just wondering if there's like any sort of guidance on like how you do it right from the very, very beginning.
Yeah.
Like the beginning of PowerPoint or the beginning of InDesign. Like how do you
Sure.
set things up? How do you group things in the right way so that when you try to adjust the reading order or it automatically gets tagged, it's in the right order?
Well, generally it starts with using the built-in header tools. So Microsoft and PowerPoint and even InDesign, if you set up those paragraph styles as header 1, 2, 3, if you set them up, and then when you convert them, then those tags should convert with it, and that sets the reading order. So headers, paragraph tags, whatnot. If you set all of those styles up within InDesign, then you can reuse that template as well. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with how to do that, how to set up character and paragraph styles within InDesign, but I would suggest moving forward that way if you use InDesign often. And then for Microsoft, the built-in Word document tools, if you use, rather than, a lot of times what people will do in a Word document is they just manually change their heading size without applying a header to it. What a lot of people don't realize is how you can customize all of the styles within Microsoft Word. And I'll just, so you have an idea of what I'm talking about, I'll pull up a quick document and show you what I mean. And links to how to do this are on our website as well. But so for example, when you're creating content, a lot of times people will just, oh, I want to make this bigger. And so they make it bigger and they make it bold, and then there's no header applied to it. So instead of doing that, use the built-in header style. So you can get it to be the way that you like, the way that it looks. And then you can right click on this style and you can update the heading 1 to match your selection. So now all of your header 1s will look like that. And you can do that all the way down the line with your heading styles. The other nice thing about doing that is after you do that, you can easily generate a table of contents if that's necessary for your document, just based off of those headers. You can insert a table of contents and it'll pull your heading structure into that. So that's one way. When you save this as a PDF, it's going to bring that header 1 tag over with you. Just like if you just enter text here, this will just automatically defer to a paragraph. Same thing with list. This will automatically get tagged as a list if you add your items when you save these as a PDF all of that information will transfer over. So one of the things that you can do to save yourself time is get all of these styles set up the way that you want in here, the way that they look. And we're going to provide some of those resources as downloadable resources on our website in the coming months. I don't have a timeline on that just yet, but it is something that we'll provide that has branded, WSU branded, pre-set up styling that you can use for tables, headers, lists, all those items. And then you just need to make sure that you're using those built-in header tools and adding alternative text to your images and things like that. Then you can save it as a template. So when you go to save as, you can save it as a template, and then moving forward, you can just double click on that document. It'll open up that template, and then everything's preset and you just have to change your copy. So that's one way that, that you can save yourself some time.
There's also an accessibility checker within Word.
Right. Let me show that really quick. You're right. I should have shown that.
I got your back, Sarah.
Thank
it's all
you.
good.
So in here, depending on if you have a Mac or a PC, so for me, I'm on a Mac, and so it's under the review tab. And then there's this little icon that says check accessibility. And so right now there's no accessibility issues found in here. But for example, what if I changed this to header 2? Well, I guess it doesn't pop up. If I had an image that I added here and there was no alternative text, that would show up as an issue. But you can leave this on while you're working within your document, and it should highlight the main issues that pop up. You can keep that on or off while I work. And that should help as you're building your content out. Bryce, looks like you have your hand up for a question. I like Mike's suggestion. The read aloud feature in Word also helps because that'll read it in the order that a screen reader would read it. So you can use that to test it out. Sorry, Bryce, go ahead.
Okay, I was just, so all the stuff that you just said in response to Molly's question was really helpful, and it's really important for building documents from the beginning. My understanding of Molly's question was it was more about object ordering, which is from my perspective much more tricky because it's harder to establish that hierarchical structure that and then it's harder to keep it consistent between platforms.
Yeah, and it depends on, what software platform you're using, whether it's InDesign or Word. Like if you're using a text box with a background or something like that, it's really going to be difficult to not have to adjust your reading order within within Adobe. If you're having like a complex layout within your Word document or your InDesign file, you're still going to have to address those things. The tags will just help in that, but it's always recommended that you open your document within Adobe Acrobat and look at the reading order. You can adjust the reading order in the reading order pane just by dragging and dropping. So when you open it and you look at it, if things don't appear to be, I'm trying to think if I have a PDF on my desktop or something that I can pull up to use as an example. I don't think I do. Let's see. Oh, I think I might have one in my email. Hold on one second and I'll pull one up. Reading order messing with the Z-index stacking order. Yeah, so yeah, Z-index bottom to top. Yeah, you can, so in PowerPoint, you can adjust the reading order of your panes. And I could show you that on the PowerPoint that I just showed you. That's in the accessibility panel where you can adjust the reading order of, what elements come first before the other. As far as InDesign goes, I'm familiar with InDesign and I've used it, but it's been a while since I've used it and not in regards to accessibility. I've not in the last couple of years. I haven't done much with it. I do know that setting up your pre-designed styles as paragraph styles and headers and things like that really does help. But the stacking order as far, so I guess I'm not sure. Documents don't really stack. Okay, here we go. Let me take a look. I'll open this document that you sent. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. So, oh, this is just in preview though. I need to open it in Adobe. Stop share.
Thank you. I'm struggling with the reading order here. Like once I move it in the reading order, it hides my figures, and then I
Okay.
don't know what to do. And I don't know how to address that back in PowerPoint, but maybe I didn't set up, but I don't know how to set up this stuff in PowerPoint either, really. So maybe I need to go way back there.
So you did this in InDesign, is that right?
This is in PowerPoint.
Okay. I'm trying to there we go. To save it to my desktop first, and then I'll open it here. Taking my Adobe a minute to open. Okay, here we go. So share my screen. Oh, all these little pop-ups here. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna go over here to, for those of you who aren't familiar with Adobe Acrobat, there is, when you expand all of your tools, there's the prepare for accessibility option in here. And so there's a number of different things in here, changing the reading order, checking for accessibility. So I'm going to do that first. I just want to see, looks like image. And it's missing a title. So that's one thing you'll want to fix. And how you do that is you just go under preferences, just to let you know, Molly, you would go under preferences and then, or wait, I think I'm wrong about that.
It's document properties under file.
Thank you. Got it.
Mhm.
File, document properties. That's right. Okay. And so this is where you would add a title, just so you're aware. And that would make that pass. You always have to have a title for your document. Sometimes it transfers over from Microsoft and sometimes it doesn't. I don't seem to know why that is, but so looks like I'm not sure. Tables, lists. Headings. Okay. So let me look at the reading order. You can go to change reading options. Wait, no, I'm sorry. Fix reading order. See, I haven't done this in a while. Fix reading order. So what this is going to do is going to pull up the order. You can see the little numbers here on each one of these items, and I can see what you mean, how things are out. So it's going to go, here's one. I have no idea where two is. Yeah, this is an extensive document here.
Choose in the
So
center,
two's in the center.
red box.
Here we go. Whoa. Yeah, that's not going to work. So based on the way that this looks, I would be curious if you used a heading structure in here, like header 1, 2, 3, what does that look like? That would be
I
one.
didn't. So that makes sense.
So I would suggest going back to to the PowerPoint and try to come up with a logical heading structure for this, because that's going to help align things underneath the different content levels to put it in the proper reading order. And then go back and look at it again. And if you can't, I'm going to show the order panel here. After that, if it's still not completely accurate, which it might not be, then you have the option of dragging and dropping in here. So you can move stuff around to put it in the right reading order. So let's see, 1. So for example, if this was supposed to be 2, this right here, you would want to move this up to 2. And so then it's going to drop that into the second reading order. And so then you want this to be number 3, which is number 5. So you would grab number 5 and you'd move it up to the number 3 spot. And so that's how you manually change the order within your PDF, is you can just drag and drop it. But I would suggest making it less work for yourself, because this is going to get pretty complicated to drag all this stuff around. Like, try and set it up with a heading structure first, and then go back and manually drag and drop these things where they need to go. Does that make sense, Molly?
Yes, that's really helpful.
So you just
Um,
have to open what's called the order pane in order to be able to drag and drop those things. And then you can save it, and then you can try it out with the read aloud option right here under view.
mm,
I'm going to sneeze, maybe.
Mhm.
And then you'll be able to see how it's going to read it out to somebody who might be using a screen reader. So that's how I would remediate this.
okay, that's a great call. Thank you.
Yep.
You also,
And
oh,
just
sorry.
go for it, Alex.
Okay, sorry. I was going to say in the PowerPoint section, like if you're doing this on PowerPoint, there is also under review tab another check accessibility option as well, and I'll show you all your errors.
Oh,
and-
see, shame on me. I need to fix this before I send it out to the group, because my PowerPoint is not accessible. I've got some issues.
And not to call you out, Sarah.
Well,
It's the
actually,
only thing I
that's
could
not.
find on PowerPoint.
No, that's
don't
not the
think
one
it-
I created. Sorry, that's an
No,
old
it's
one.
not.
That's not
It's
the
an
one I
old
had
one.
today.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's just my last PowerPoint I did, but just to show you where there's an accessibility tab if you
Right,
are going back to your original source. There's some help there too.
right.
But go ahead, Molly, you're gonna say something.
I guess just like in summary of all the things you've told me I should be doing at the very beginning, it's primarily like heading structure. Like no matter what platform you're using, like that's the key priority thing. And then the only other thing I'm thinking of is like captions like grouped with the images. Like, is that important? Like, are there any other small things like that that might help relieve a headache for somebody?
You know, I don't know. That's a good question, Molly. Like, I've used the group functionality within PowerPoint, but I don't know how that relates to saving it as a PDF. If it groups that whole box as one content element, I would think it does. I'd have to try that out. But definitely, I would associate captions with images. And if you do that, if you have a descriptive caption of what's going on in the image, then you can leave the alternative text. You can mark it as decorative. So you don't have to have duplication of a caption and also the alternative text that are saying the same thing. Just one or the other is necessary. So keep that in mind too. You don't have to go and double your efforts and add captions and alternative text if they're similar. You can just mark the image as decorative and include the caption, I guess. So yeah, I'd have to test that theory out as far as grouping content and then saving it. But I would, in theory, it sounds like that would work. Logo images is decorative. I think they're conveying meaning. So I would probably say cougar head logo in crimson. That's what I would give it for alternative text, because I think logos convey meaning. It's the branding that I think it conveys a message. So I would include alternative text for logos. Things like lines or decorative images or things that don't add any context or content to the page can be marked as decorative. If they're not conveying any meaning, they can be marked as decorative. So
And when
text
creating alt
boxes,
text,
things like that.
and then I was just going to add, when creating alt text, don't put photo of, image of, anything like that. Just start with the descriptive text of the image.
Yeah, like apple tree with, ripe red apples ready to be picked, or, how would you describe that image to somebody if they couldn't see it? But yeah, just like Alex said, in the code, when the screen reader comes to that, it's going to tell the user that it's an image already, just in the alternative text and in the title of it. So that additional step is not needed. Okay, let's see. If we're thinking linking to PDFs housed at WSU Library of WSU Connors Pubs, those should be compliant, right? Yes. So actually, we're working on a new publication store right now that is in development, and all of the current publications are being reviewed to ensure they're compliant with accessibility. So within the next 6 months, I'm hoping we'll be there. Probably by Christmas time, you'll see the launch of the new WSU publication store. And part of that will be updating any current publications to be accessible if they're not already. I do believe a lot of them are, at least since 2015, the ones that have been developed are, but each one's getting manually checked. So that's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up. If you house them on your site, though, and just to backtrack on that, you are not responsible for making sure that PDFs are compliant if they do not live on your site. The responsibility just falls on you if you're the creator of the content and you're sharing it via your own website or email or your own course materials. If you're linking to it and it technically lives somewhere else, like on the publication store, then you're not liable or responsible for that. Yes, it is. Efren has been working very hard on it. It's really coming together and looks really nice. I think it's going to be a much better user experience when the new one gets launched. Okay, how you create a heading structure in PowerPoint. There isn't styles like there is in Word. That's a good point. So, we only have about 2 minutes, but I'm still going to pull up. Let me just pull up the PowerPoint so the way it works in PowerPoint is slide titles. That would be what would be considered like your header 1, and then your paragraph text, if that helps sort it out. Let me just get this open here. Here we go. Okay, so in this PowerPoint presentation that I shared earlier, when I checked it for accessibility, one of the things that popped up for me was that all of the slide titles were missing. And so I'm going to go under review. This is where the accessibility option is. Check accessibility. And this is the warning. So manually I needed to check the reading order. I didn't do that before this. But the errors that were popping up were missing slide titles. And so that acts as the header 1 on the page. And so when you look at, I'm trying to, let's see. We'll go here. Trying to, now I can't remember how to access my outline of slide titles. Of course, because I'm giving a demo. Review, check accessibility. Maybe it's the selection pane. No.
I think it might be under view if you're looking for outline.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Outline view. There we go. Yes. So these are all missing. So not all of them, but a lot of them. And so how I fix that is just by clicking on the box, clicking within the text, and then under accessibility, clicking on slide title to make it the slide title. So what that does is it helps the readability of, like it would a page, it helps you to go page by page. And so then it'll read that content in order based on the order of your slide titles. So that's kind of how the heading structure works in there. It's going to go in order of the way the content shows up on the. Now, how, when you start getting into more like what Molly shared, that gets to be a little bit more difficult, but that's where under the selection pane, you'd have to make sure that things were in the proper order. Like it looks like I've got some things out of that I need to check to make sure are in order. So it's reading this first. So that would be on top. That would be in the middle, and this would be on bottom. So that's how I want this order to be read on this page. So this one, and this one. That's the order now that it'll read on that slide. That's where how you check it on the selection pane. And so fixing that will make sure that it shows up the right way. So that's kind of how that using the heading structure works. So I guess it doesn't completely transfer like it does to Word, but does that help clear it up, Bryce? Let's see.
Well, it kind of does, but yeah, just like Sarah's question that she's putting here, once you start having a bunch of objects and then you have set the reading order and then you convert it to a PDF, like I think that I thought that's what Molly's original question was about. Like she can set the order in PowerPoint, but then when she converts it to something else, the reading order is out of order again, and then she feels like she has to reset it.
Yeah.
I got that wrong, Molly, but.
Yeah, and that's the nature of using documents. You know, I think we can start with the basics of setting it up to be accessible, and not everything is going to always transfer over, unfortunately. And a lot of times things do need to be fixed within Adobe Acrobat. So it can be a pain, you know, depending on what you're using it for. I mean, obviously we need documents, we need to do PowerPoint presentations. But if you're posting it on the web, it's good to consider, is there a better alternative than a document? Why not just build a web page if that is more applicable? This is another reason to put much of your web content through publications and just link stuff up to your local site. Absolutely, I agree with you, Todd. I really encourage, a lot of times people will download the publication from the pub store and then re-upload it to their site. I don't recommend doing that. Wherever possible, link to the publication store. I know not all publications are technically published on the publication store, but I would work with publications on that. That's going to be the best way forward, is whenever possible to link to the content. It lives in one place, and then you're not running the risk of, you know, having outdated content that may have been recently updated too on your site. Let's see, if you convert a PDF to a slide deck, does this carry over, or do you have to go through to confirm the reading order? You have to go through to confirm the reading order. I always suggest checking that. Now, if you're just creating this PowerPoint for yourself and you're going to be giving the PowerPoint, you need to make sure that if somebody is attending that meeting, that, you know, things are in the right reading order. But if this is just something you're going to like maybe show at a conference on a screen, I mean, that's a different scenario. You're not sharing that document with anyone that will be opening it and reading it on their own. Then the rules don't necessarily apply that way. It is 12:04. So does anybody have any other questions? I'm happy to stay on a few more minutes if anybody has any additional questions. We will be continuing to offer more trainings on digital accessibility. There's a lot to cover. For those of you who would like to share this with your groups, I will send the link to this video out as soon as we have it uploaded to our YouTube channel. And if any questions come up or you have requests for any additional training, please just reach out to me or the Connors, somebody on the Connors web team, and we'll be happy to assist.